Hello, beautiful beings. Thank you so much for joining us for the very first episode of the Consciously Wandering podcast. My name is Deanna, and I am a nomad on a spiritual and physical journey. And today I am so excited to have my dear friend and soul sister joining me for this conversation about boundaries. This is Amrita Ariana of Sacred Nectar, Birthkeeping, and Embodied Ceremony. Thank you, Amrita.
Thanks for having me.
So I will give a little bit of a disclaimer at the beginning that we are both in places where the internet is a little bit unpredictable, such is the nature of life as a nomad. And so if we have any significant lags, I will edit them out, but it's definitely a possibility. And it's just something that we have to embrace on these journeys. So this will just be a free-flowing conversation that will likely include each of our personal reflections on some of our more challenging experiences in life as nomads, and also the perspective that these experiences have helped us to gain around understanding our own boundaries and what we need physically, spiritually, and emotionally to feel at home in our bodies and in our physical space. So, Amrita, do you want to share anything about your background, just being a nomad in life?
Sure. So I'm currently based in Puna, Big Island, Hawaii, and I have been calling the Big Island home for a year and a half. And prior to this home, I enjoyed being a yogini at an ashram and traveling throughout the Middle East and South America, as well as Africa and India. And this chapter has really been focused on rooting and what my roots mean and feel like, and how I can use roots as inspiration and how inspiration creates roots.
Yes. So, is your time in Hawaii on the Big Island, is this the longest that you have stayed somewhere for quite some time?
I lived in Israel for almost 2 years, although within that time frame, I also traveled to and from India and Egypt, Jordan, as well as Palestine. So while it was my home base, there was quite a bit of movement within that. And I feel like this chapter in Hawaii is rooted in a more anchoring and grounded way. So I would say yes, although there's been a close, it's close. It's close.
Okay. Okay. What makes your time in Hawaii stand out as opposed to other places where you've spent time?
Hmm. Hawaii is the embodiment of ancient Lemuria, Garden of Eden, and it feels like a home for the seekers who have decided to stop seeking because they found a home. And I felt greater ease in my capacity to find aligned tribe with ease and flow, and to embrace our flows as sovereign beings journeying um, our paths collectively and individually, and um, enjoying that flow from a place of calm trust.
Mm, that's beautiful. I have loved hearing about your time in Hawaii and just the adventures that you've been on so far, both physically and emotionally and spiritually. And the community in Hawaii sounds just so rich and amazing. Um, so the idea for this topic came up because of a conversation that we were having on the phone the other day around physical comforts and things that come up, challenges that come up in the form of physical comforts. Do you want to share that story?
Yeah. So where I live it there's a rainy season, and about 2 weeks ago, the rainy season really dove deeper. And it was about 7 days of pretty torrential storms. And I have recently moved into a tree house, and there are no walls. So you might see there's this wall is actually the only wall. But it is quite spacious and open. And the roof is not new. And prior to this last downpour week, there was definitely some drips, but it seemed like those were contained in specific areas. But in that week, I experienced a lot of rain within my living space, and I was very uncomfortable. There were puddles all throughout the area that I was sleeping in, and my capacity to feel comfortable was really challenged. And I realized the limitations that I feel in regards to my comfort and my capacity to embrace living close to the earth, and my desire to see the stars from my bed and to watch the moon, and also to feel comfortable and to feel safe and cozy and dry, regardless of the elements. So now that there is a tarp on top of the roof, and I've also put up some like silken tapestries under the roof to support just like the water as well as the dust to sort of contain that. Um, and it also hasn't rained as torrentially since that week. So it's yet to be clear, although I feel confident and trusting that that experience, I learned how I can support myself in my needs for comfort and feeling safe and cozy,
Mm. Okay,
dry.
so I do want to ask what you've learned around supporting yourself, but first I want to ask, what were the feelings that were coming up at the time when the exact words you used when you said this to me are, I was sleeping in a puddle. And I'm curious to go more into that emotion
Yes.
because you living in such a magical space doesn't mean that it's free of less than magical experiences. And in some cases, greater challenges than would come up if you were living in a box, which is the standard person's experience.
Absolutely. My feelings of sleeping in the puddle. Oh, I felt despair, like
Mm.
this deep desperation. Kind of like I was floating on a raft in a storm, and there was nothing around that I could grasp to anchor myself to land. And there was this sense of the unknown being so vast and wide and deep, and my capacity to trust myself in that mystery was challenged and pushed to some limits.
Mm. Were you finding it difficult in those moments to draw on feelings of gratitude for where you are? Or was that something that even came up in your mind?
There's practices that I do every day that support me in returning to a space of gratitude and equanimity and balance. And I think that I was really using those tools and practices. Um, so, and I think I was finding that the length of time that I was finding my practices supportive was less than I usually experience.
Mhm.
So while I was returning to gratitude and returning to some inner peace, it was more of a transient state than I experience on my usual day to day.
So, since you say that, I also want to make a reflection because I recently had a period of about 6 months that were really challenging. And for me to be going through not constant challenge, but for me to be experiencing challenge on a regular basis for such an extended period of time, the concept of time is something that comes up for me in this case because in the beginning of this period where I was experiencing these challenges, my practices that I use to stay grounded, to feel gratitude, were working. And I almost feel like my practices became less potent over that period of time to the point where I got to a point like maybe 4 months in where it seemed like nothing was working at all. And I was like, okay, now I have to develop all new practices. However, that feeling of bliss and gratitude that has become through my spiritual journey such a natural state for me was feeling so distant that I almost, in trying to cultivate new practices, I at times didn't know where to begin and didn't really know what I was like searching for. What is the feeling that I want to feel? I was feeling so disconnected from that that it almost felt completely inaccessible. And I still don't know quite what the shift was because I'm back to near constant gratitude and bliss. But yeah, that will take more reflection. But the concept of time that you mentioned is definitely an interesting fluctuation.
I love that idea that you're bringing up about our practices and their capacity to sustain us and our need for deepening expansion in ways that challenge our our what we know and that reflecting our growth, our constant growth.
Yeah. So, what are your practices, if you don't mind me asking?
Mm. So right now, I wake up around the sunrise and I watch the sunrise and I come down from and do washing and I have a shofar, which is a traditional Jewish horn made out of a ram's horn, where it's higher, more elevated space, more expansive view of the ocean. And I blow the ram's horn, the shofar, several times, and I walk back home. Pick some flowers often on the way, either for my living space or for the communal kitchen that I use. And then I journal, I write, and then I meditate and do yoga and breath work. That is my morning flow. And in the evening, I close the day with meditation as well. I
Yeah.
also have been really enjoying writing affirmations on my chalkboard. I have colored chalk and this nice little chalkboard that hangs, and taking some snippets from my morning practice and writing them out every day. Um, and then I look at that through the day, reminding me what I'm focusing on and helping me refocus.
Your day sounds very lovely. And I know that sometimes there's swimming with dolphins mixed in there. Are you super consistent with this, like every day, or are there times where that fluctuates?
There's definitely times where that fluctuates, yes. Depending on the day. For example, Wednesdays I have midwifery school. and that begins early in the day. So instead of doing most of those practices, I'll probably choose one or two, and then get to the ocean as soon as I can before school. And sometimes there are dolphins then, but just feeling like showing up in spaces um, with the most capacity of presence and groundedness that I can bring is really important to me. And so that fluctuates depending on where I am called to be present.
This is a conversation that we've had before around sort of knowing when to be more structured with ourselves in terms of our practices and when to be a bit more free flowing. And we haven't checked in on that in quite a while. So I was curious where you are with that. Okay, so going back to your experience of sleeping in a puddle and the steps that you had to take in order to reestablish your comfort in your physical space, is there anything that you learned through that around your boundaries for physical comfort?
Speaking up for my needs, speaking up for myself and those needs, um, I think was really important. And I was kind of in a toughing it out. I can deal with like, this is okay, state of mind. And when I really acknowledged the extent to my discomfort, I was able to receive a lot of support in tending to my physical comfort. And from there, my capacity to show up. Um, and that had felt like super limiting when I was just in that like toughing it out, sleeping in a puddle stage.
Mm, that's beautiful. Wow, I think we all could use that, like feeling into the knowing that it's okay to reach out. That's been a big part of my own journey. Have you struggled with that before, or is that something you've been comfortable with?
I think that's always been a struggle, acknowledging my needs and feeling worthy of meeting them and receiving support to do so and
Mm,
accepting support when it's offered.
feeling worthy of meeting them. That feels like a headline, like feeling worthy of meeting my needs. I just want to like feel into that. Like we are all worthy of having our needs met.
We are all worthy of having our needs met.
Mm. And something that it makes me think of is the question of recognizing our needs. That's something that's also been a challenge for me, is even recognizing what my needs are. And when you're faced with the situation where, and this has been a theme for me too this year, and I wonder if it's something happening within the collective and if other people are experiencing this, but being confronted with something that's so obvious, like sleeping in a puddle, or like I've had the experience of sleeping in a construction zone. Other times, not this year, but I've had the experience of sleeping in a car. And I know you've had that one as well. And these are like such confronting experiences where there's no more ignoring it. Like, how many times did we have to go through those subtle nudges from the universe trying to say, like, you recognize this need coming up and being like, I'm fine, it's all okay. And like, now I'm wondering how much of that is bypassing, how much of it is us actually being okay because of the practices that we do to maintain that okayness slash, the range from okayness to like
Mhm.
full out bliss. But yeah, it's a big one.
Or are we, as we accept our limitations, like accepting that, and then as we acknowledge where we are, that creates space for expansion. And when we remain in that space of contraction, of using our practices to stay where we are, and how dependent we may become on those practices, and acknowledging a problem that can be solved, the space that that creates for us to show up in greater ways.
Yeah. So many nuances to the human experience. It's a beautiful thing. So, what do you see as your like epitome of comfort? Not, of course, physical comfort, but comfort in all senses of the word. What looks like comfort to you? What feels like comfort to you?
Comfort feels like my heart is, I can hold my heart and I can see the framework, the network of spaciousness that is supporting me. And I can choose discerningly how I want to show up and live. And I'm making those choices from a place of clear-sightedness, feeling that the choices that I'm making are spacious, are not out of constriction, are out of me acknowledging the possibilities that are available, and and choosing consciously what feels good. And even if that choice is, I make a new choice shortly after, that I'm acting I'm acting. I think comfort and action are kind of like together, that in the sense of I am present, and I'm comfortable in that presence, so that my actions come from from an expansive place of clarity.
So, is there anything that you see yourself doing going forward to further cultivate this feeling of comfort?
I think communication is a big part of that for me, and being comfortable with my voice being heard, and that my what I'm going through is resonant with others. And because of this mutual resonance, that creates space for comfort. For example, when I shared with you that my puddle experience, that's what's creating this conversation, because there was this mutual resonance. And that when I'm ashamed of my needs, that I cannot access comfort. And embracing my desire for comfort as a universal desire and a universal need, and that is that I'm worthy of comfort, and that we all are.
Heck yeah. So, being a transient being, I love this topic because my own needs around comfort and the steps that I take to make myself comfortable are literally shifting on such a constant basis. And it's just like every time I experience a different facet of discomfort, I'm like shifting. It's like the matrix of my mind is like completely just like I'm doing this thing with my hands, but it's like a Play-Doh that's constantly being reworked. And yeah, comfort is something that I think is just taken for granted so much in the human experience, and something that's challenged so much in the experience of a transient being, that we're like confronted with just becoming so comfortable in the discomfort.
I'm tuning into the chakra of like worthiness. So in our chakra system, like worth is a solar plexus, that is the facet of our solar plexus, and that's like who we are, and then like communicating that is like through the heart, like our heart is acknowledging our our worth and infusing that with our like oneness, unity, um brother and sisterhood, and that connections, and then through their throat communicating that. So I'm just feeling into this like synthesis of the growth that I think we're speaking of as we're talking about comfort, which is like such a base level root chakra thing that maybe we do take for granted. But really, like, in order to sustain our comfort, it's a synthesis, it's a full body synthesis, full bodies of physical and energetics
Mm.
working together to support that for us.
Can we do an affirmation starting from the root and moving our way up to assist in that synthesis? Is that something that, like, I would love for us to come up with
Sure.
that right now? Like, starting in the root. Something for me that comes up, an affirmation that feels like it's the start of this synthesis for myself, is I am always at home because my home is my body.
Mm. My body is a safe place for my soul.
Mm, yeah, that's good.
Trusting that I am trusting that my body is a safe place, a safe home, a safe vessel
Mhm.
for my soul.
Yeah. Is there anything else that comes up around the root for you that you want to share before I move to the sacral?
What comes up for me in the root is trust and anchoring into that depth of mycelium networks that are deep in the earth that we're anchored into, and trusting our space in that network tapestry
Mm,
puzzle web.
yeah.
And our reason for being as integral to that weave.
Do you want to start with sacral? I am so challenged with the sacral.
Sure. So the sacral is abundance, pleasure, well-being, and deservedness for me, and honoring our capacity to receive pleasure and abundance, and that we are deserving of our dreams and capable of creating them
Mm,
without with that it's effort, that the effort is easeful because we are deserving.
okay, so that's beautiful. And how can we make that like an easily digestible affirmation for a sacral chakra around comfort?
I deserve comfort.
Yeah. Okay, so when it's that simple, and it is that simple, which is where like me even saying that I'm challenged by it is because I always want to make it more complex, and it just doesn't need to be. And it just isn't, like, overall, it's not. And so in you saying that, what comes up for me when we're moving up to solar plexus is I enjoy being comfortable. Simple as that. I enjoy my comforts.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I am worthy of my comforts.
Yeah. I am worthy of my comforts.
I am worthy of my comforts. And into the heart, I experience joy in my comforts.
Mm. For me, bringing it into the heart, I want to say when I experience comfort within myself, I am able to live in love and to move from my heart. It's very, very, very true for me.
As I experience joy in my heart, I am able to move with comfort.
Switch the word comfort and heart.
As I experience joy in my comforts, I live from my heart.
Yeah. I live in love. That's
Yeah.
when I am able to
I,
when when I feel comfortable and I am like I don't even have to like be feeling necessarily in my deserving of my comfort. But when I am comfortable, like I am a heart-led being. I lead with love and like being feeling like I don't have those comforts seriously challenges that. Like, I've had so many moments this year where I've been in situations where I'm seeing aspects of myself come out that I haven't seen in years. And like now, though, when I was younger, I didn't know any better because I really was never comfortable at that time. You know, I wasn't comfortable in my body, I wasn't comfortable in my physical surroundings, and I wasn't comfortable within my own mind. So, like, at those times, I wasn't even conscious enough to recognize what I was doing. And now, when this comes up, I'm being faced with like making a conscious decision and recognizing, like, and it also is an opportunity to recognize more of what I'm feeling if I wasn't already paying attention to myself and what I'm feeling is like seeing a behavior and or seeing a behavior that I want to exhibit and questioning, okay, why is this coming up right now? And how do I want to show up? I mean, it's in the first few years of my spiritual journey, this never even had to be a question because I was in that state of bliss all the time. And it's very easy to live from the heart when you're in a state of bliss. But when you're in a state of discomfort, living from the heart has to be a conscious choice and it has to be something that you're aware of. And yeah, it's been a theme for sure. Anything else that comes up
yeah.
around the heart?
Growing into that capacity to feel joy and feel love and express that openly because I'm comfortable.
Mm. Yeah. Okay, so here comes that full synthesis up to our throat. I express what I need to feel comfortable.
I express what I need to feel comfortable. I communicate my needs for comfort.
I I communicate my needs for comfort to myself.
Mm.
Okay, so I don't know if we brought up the third eye earlier when we started talking about this, but I know it comes up for me. Is there anything that you want to share in terms of a third eye affirmation around comfort?
Mm. My needs for comfort are wise.
Mm. Okay, so that brought up another one for me, which isn't what I was originally feeling into. And it is that I am wise enough to recognize my needs for comfort. What I was originally feeling into is the recognition that physical comfort is a temporary state. And so when I am able to create a deeper sense of comfort within myself, just within my body, even if my body is experiencing physical discomfort, when I am able to cultivate comfort in a deeper state, I can always feel comfortable.
I can return to my deep state of comfort.
Mm, yeah, that's good. That's really good. I can return to my deep state of comfort in any moment. Mm, and bringing it up to the crown, it brings me back to I am worthy of comfort in all forms.
Comfort isn't, I feel like for the crown for me is this like universal collective consciousness
Mm,
that is expressing our needs as an embodiment of our like divine, like by fulfilling my needs for comfort, I am creating greater comfort. My capacity to emanate comfort increases.
yeah, that's so good. Okay. Yeah, I love it. I want to put it into more words.
Mm-hmm.
I
All my
assist.
relations, all
Yes.
my relations experience greater comfort as I embrace my capacity for comfort.
Yeah, yeah. The more I cultivate comfort within myself, I cultivate comfort in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, that's good. I
Hmm.
like the comfort affirmations.
Me too.
So, do you have any
Hmm.
thoughts around the physical space that you're in now? Do you foresee yourself? And I know that we don't always plan ahead or anything like that, but just feeling into how you feel there and what do you desire in regards to this physical space.
I'm seeing a um seasonal nomad ship between New England, Maine, New England, and here, um, that supports me to give and receive in ways that I'm not capable of by being rooted solely here in this space. So tapping into that nomadic lifestyle for seasonally. And when I'm here, I do love this space. It does fulfill my needs. I am interested in putting in a garden where I can grow some more vegetables and medicines. And yeah, there's some uncertainty around this land and what the owners are doing, so that has created a bit more uncertainty for me. Although been returning to that place of trust. So my needs for a garden and to be cultivating food for myself have kind of been on pause while we work through some decisions around the land. Um, so that is not part of my um, control, and nor do I want it to be. And just recognizing that there is greater capacity for endless opportunities that I'm exploring. So definitely been tuning into this seasonal living balance.
Mm. Well, I will say selfishly, because I have also been thinking about if I want to spend a certain chunk of time each year in New England, what chunk of time would that want to be? So selfishly, I would love for us to overlap in New England. It's been at least probably a year and a half since we've seen each other in person. Or almost, if not yet. Um, but I also have been grounding into the idea of spending some time in New England. But I will also say that throughout your time in Hawaii, your ability to be very fluid with your living space, like the physical space where you're living, your living situations, and the amount that you've moved since you've been there has helped me to cultivate a sense of trust in the uncertainty. And that's something that has been, for me, has felt like a big part of your journey. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure if it feels like a big deal for me, and I'm sure it's a big thing for you, but I'm grateful to you for sharing that part of your journey because it's been a big lesson for me as well.
Thank you for seeing that. I think I've been tuning into conscious closures and their capacity for beginnings in a deeper way. And as my capacity to create closures increases and deepens, my capacity to embrace the beginnings reciprocates.
Mm, yeah. Well, given all of the experience that you've had on the Big Island so far, regardless of what happens with the land you're on now, I have full confidence that you will find a space where you are able to cultivate comfort and joy and have a garden that nourishes your physical body without very much resistance at all. I know that that will happen.
Mm. Mahalo.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I feel like there's not a better person that I could have spoken with on this topic. It definitely is a theme that comes up in our personal conversations quite a bit. So I just want to say thank you. And also thank you for supporting me and my creative endeavors and just being a sister. And I love you.
I love you. It's been such a pleasure to deepen into this topic with you and really explore some deeper avenues and channels for what comfort means in our lives.
Yes. I feel like this felt very similar to our casual conversations that we have when we talk on the phone, but with less popcorning from topic to topic. So I like that the sort of bringing it back to the topic allows us to deepen into that. And maybe we'll use that as a little bit of an inspiration to allow ourselves to go even deeper than we already do when we are speaking in just our personal one-on-one phone calls.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
So before we wrap up, is there anything else that you feel called to share on this topic or anything else that you would like to say?
I would just like to anchor in this knowing that comfort comes from within and that our capacity to express our needs outward increases our inner comfort that we are so deeply worthy of. Just
Mm,
want to affirm that, clarify that, because it is a truth.
mhm. And so it is. Mm.
So it is.
Okay, so thank you so much, Amrita, for speaking with me. I am so excited to birth this baby into the world. And if anyone who hears this wants to follow your journeys or get in touch with your services, find out more about your services, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's amritasacrednectar.com. I have an email address, which is sacrednectar@gmail.com. Have a personal Instagram, which is Amrita_Ariana, and a birthkeeping Instagram, which I believe is Amrita Sacred Nectar, although it's possible that it is Sacred Nectar Birth Services. I do not know off the top of my head at the moment, but there are some ways to reach out to me, and I would love to connect.
And I will link those wherever I post this so people can just click it and not have to deal with spellings and typing or whatever. So, yeah. But if you do desire to connect with
Wonderful.
Amrita, she is a magical fairy being, and I know that her work is potent. So, okay. So again, thank you,
Thank you so
Amrita.
much, sister. It's been such a pleasure.
Oh, we have our lag. I'm grateful for you. And thank you to anyone who watched this podcast. You have just had an inside view on what all of our conversations sound like. I love you all and
Many blessings and lots of love. Aloha.